Hey guys, so in this video I am showing you how I am transforming this grown out kind of red coppery ginger color, and we are going to be doing something super fun. So just take in this entire before. We're thin, we're about collarbone length, and then we transformed to this. So if you're interested in how I got this look, both color and extensions, keep on watching because this one is a complete, utter, amazing transformation. So to start, I am using Blondie by Schwarzkopf with a little bit of Wella Free Lights in it. I'm going in, I want to do a little bit more right up around the hairline, just to make sure that when she pulls her hair back, that it looks nice and bright. For the most of her look, mostly everything will be in a foil and or have color on it. So I am using my sectioning comb. I use the one that has like the little it's like micro fine baby lights. I just find that it gives me the most seamless and blended look. So right up around her hairline, I like to do things a little bit closer together, but for the most part, I am just doing a lot of really fine baby lights. Since we want to have a little bit more of a rooted look, just because we want to have something that's going to grow in nicely and not have her feel like she has to get her roots touched up every single time she gets a move up, I am just going in and applying my liner. Basically, all where like my my lighter part is, just because I want that to be like blonde and not be so warm toned. So I'm not necessarily bringing this all the way up to the roots, just because I want to keep some of the roots already there. That way I know exactly what to color match to. Sometimes I feel like it's a little difficult if I go in and do like back-to-back baby lights, bringing them all the way up to smudge them with the absolute correct color. So I'm just going in and doing all of these. They don't have to be exactly perfect, just because I do know that I will be going in and smudging everything. Once I get all of my foils put in, I do go in between each foil with my root color that I'm going to use, and I blur down over my line of demarcation just to make sure that, I don't know, we have a little bit more depth where I want it, and that way all of my light pieces don't necessarily start up at the same point, and my dark pieces aren't just right up at the roots. That is what is going to give us the softest, most natural possible look. So you get this is just kind of the gist of it, but once her color has fully processed, I will be going in and tipping out her ends. Since her ends are a little bit shorter, I won't be doing this while the rest of her hair is in a foil, just because I mean, there's not a lot of ends that are available sticking out underneath the foils, and I want to bring my liner up higher than what it's showing. So I am going to fast forward to showing you how I like to do my low lights in between. So, and then for my root, I'm going in with Redken Shades EQ 7NA and 8NA, both equal parts. I am using their gel processing solution. What I am doing is I am just folding each foil forward, and then I am painting the root down, making sure that I'm painting it over my line of demarcation. Each root section I do like to paint like stopping at a different point. That way we have a lot of like variety throughout the hair, and so that way you can't see like this is exactly where the light starts, this is exactly where the dark starts. It just looks a lot more natural. So you want to make sure that you're combing this through and not just like blurring it in with your brush. I find that going through and just combing through the section afterwards makes sure that everything is really soft and blended. So I did the exact same thing through her front sections, and then I am going in and I am doing a root smudge with that same root formula that I used before, 7NA and 8NA. I like to create my root smudge at a little bit of an angle, so that way I have more depth towards the back, and then towards the very front I like to leave that more all the way up. I find that this gives a little bit more longevity, and it makes it look a little bit more intentional, and it keeps more brightness up around her face, so that way as it grows in, it doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like everything grows out on the same point, and everything just looks more intentional and more seamless. So we are just going in and blurring all of that. I am smudging her front pieces just a tiny bit, just to make sure that they are going to blend super nicely, because we don't plan on doing her color every 6 or 8 weeks. We want to have something with a little bit more longevity. So I'm just going in and brushing that through. You want to make sure that you are brushing through I always try to make this make the most sense, but for me, you want to brush it through until you can't see any like distinctive parts of like where your color starts and stops. You want everything to look really seamless. So I find that I do have to brush quite a bit to make things look really soft. But remember, when you're doing this, you want to take really thin sections and saturate very thoroughly. That is what is going to make your root smudge look the absolute best, cover the best, and just make everything look as natural as possible. So once we have this on, we will be going in and doing more of like a balayage or I guess wet balayage to her ends, because as you can tell, she still has like some leftover warmth in there from the sections that we kind of left out. The reason I didn't put every single thing in a foil is because I still wanted things to look really natural and like sun-kissed and lived in. I didn't want everything to be so starkly blonde. So we will be going in and wet balayaging. I will fast forward until you can see us doing that. So now I like to go in with my excess lightener that I have. When I had stopped her like normal foiling, I had ended with about 20 volume. So that's what I'm using to tip out her ends. I don't recommend using something like 7 volume to tip out ends because that's going to take way too long, but I necessarily wouldn't go above like 30 per se. So I'm going in, and this doesn't need to be super precise just because I'm not necessarily looking for a lot of lift. I just want to kind of lift things out a little bit and mainly just kind of bust through that harsh initial warm phase. So I pretty much just do this in just a few sections. It's normally pretty quick. I am not blending clear up into my root area. I just mainly kind of want to tip out the ends. The main reason I'm just kind of focusing on the ends is because with adding extensions, to get things to match, you know, really nicely, everything doesn't per se have to be the exact color you want it. As long as the ends match what the extensions are doing, it's going to look really nice and it's going to blend really well, because you don't want to push their hair past what it can handle. So what I'm doing with her hair is I'm mainly focusing on getting everything really soft and blended and getting her ends the lightness and the tone level that I want them to be. Because as time goes on, we can work on getting her midsections lighter and like getting things, you know, perfect. But you want to make sure that for when you're adding extensions that the ends match. Because if the ends don't match, it's going to look super obvious that they have extensions. So after I got her all of her lighter pieces, like her wet balayage on, I do like to let this sit for like the full processing time of my root, which is typically about 15 to 20 minutes. You can let that sit on for like a shorter period of time if you want to, but if you know that it'll be ready in like 5 minutes, maybe I would use a lower volume developer to do so. But yes, so this is kind of just how I do it. I just kind of like to blur this on. It's so satisfying for me to watch. I'm like, I know that that's me doing it, but I truly just love doing this. So also, if you're smart, wear gloves. Becca doesn't wear gloves because, you know, who knows? My hands always are a little bit sad afterwards, but yeah, I'm just going in and blurring that in. What I found that this type of look looks really pretty because my root is my darkest point, and then I have a little bit of that like mid-tone, and then my ends look really bright. So this looks very intentional. So, and also I think it's very satisfying when it's processing. Also, don't mind me, I did forget to film when I glossed her, but after we rinsed out her root smudge, we did go in and just do an Oliver gloss. I used 9P, 9NA, and 9T with a little bit of 9GI in there just to make sure that we still remain super bright. So once we dried her, I'm going in and color matching her extensions. I do have a lot of hair on hand just because I want to be able to match anything that kind of comes my way. So we did order her some hair, but I always like to go through and see if any of the colors I have on hand will match her better. So I like to color match for my top row and my bottom row. So I like to go in and I like to obviously fold up the hair, put the weft underneath it just to see what colors are going to match the best with her hair. Then once I'm matching the bottom row, I do like to do the exact same thing and section off and just match what's going to fit the best. That way, regardless of how she wears her hair, it is going to look the most natural, because that's the key with extensions. If you don't color match correctly and if you don't place your colors correctly, it's not going to look natural, it's not going to blend, and ultimately you're totally going to notice that she has extensions. So I am using the brand Scotty and Ashton. We are doing half 20s and half 22s. I do like to do 20s on my bottom row and 22s on my top row. This is going to make sure that everything lines up at the very end. That way I'm not having to trim off stuff that I'm not going to be using per se. So it's going to look the exact same as if I went in and did all 22s, because I'd have to trim those up to make it not look funky. So I'm going in and doing my waterfall bead placement. This is honestly my favorite placement of any of the placements I've tried, and I have tried a bunch of them. So just because I teach a actual class on this, I am going to be kind of speeding up through this process so that way I'm not giving away all of my secrets to you guys. But honestly, you guys should get extension certified because it's the best ever. So I'm going in and doing my beads first. I did match her beads as close to her natural root color as I could, just to make sure that everything is going to blend as well as it possibly can. So like I said, for her bottom row, I am going in and I am doing 20 inches. I did color match, and the colors that I chose for her bottom row are Rooted Pearl, which is a beautiful, it was a monthly color, which I am very sad about, but that is this color right here. It is Rooted Pearl. The root is about a level, like an ashy level 7, and the blonde is a ashy platinum color. So I'm doing those on her front corners, and then I'm going in and I am doing Sand, which is a little bit of a warmer color, and I am doing the color Walnut, which is a very it's a very soft dimensional color, and it gives a little bit of warmth to it just because her hair has a little bit of warmth already, as you guys can probably tell. So I'm going in, I'm doing 4 wefts per row. When adding length, you do have to match their current density in order for it to match and or go thicker. You can't have, for example, you couldn't do 1 row and add length really with that, just because it's not typically enough hair. So I am just going in, I am stitching that in. Like I said, I used the colors Rooted Pearl, Walnut, and Sand to create this look. I do find with extensions you want to have a lot of colors, because that is what is going to give it the most natural feel to it. So I'm going in and just stitching that in. I am using my brown thread just to make sure that looks the most consistent with her root color. So you wouldn't necessarily want to have these wefts bright blonde all the way up unless her hair had no root to it, because then that is going to, it would stick out like a sore thumb. So you want to make sure if they have a rooted look that you're having rooted wefts with that, at least rooted wefts over the top. The other ones that I used in this aren't necessarily rooted, but the one on top is rooted, so it's going to look the most natural. So for the top row, I did Rooted Pearl as well, and I did Sand and I think it's called Vanilla Cream in 22s. So I'm going in and I am just cutting, making sure that everything is going to blend. With extensions, I feel like naturally, since they're placed up a little bit higher around your face, they do kind of create a little bit more of like a U shape kind of in the back. But you want to make sure that you're adding in layers and face framing just to make sure that everything blends. So I like to pick up the hair and I like to start adding layers right where her ends meet the where her ends start and where the extensions fully begin. That is going to make it look the most natural, because if you just let things go, yes, her color blends, her ends blend in well, but if you want it to look as natural as possible, you do need to make sure that you're adding in layers and face framing. That way you can't obviously tell that their hair ends here, their extensions start here. So really spend your time, add in layers, point cut, texturize. But you do want to make sure that when you're adding in extensions that you are density matching, because if you're not putting in enough hair, you don't want your client nor you to feel like you have to thin out their natural hair so much to get it to blend, because your goal with them wearing extensions is that their hair is going to grow, it's going to be healthy, and that when they take the extensions out, their hair is not just gone down the toilet. So make sure that you're adding in enough hair and that you're adding in enough layers and texture that it looks the most natural and that it blends super seamlessly. So I like to make sure that I'm adding in a lot kind of around the face, just to make sure that I am connecting where their front pieces end and all the way down through. That way it looks very intentional. So as you can probably tell through her midsections, they are still a little bit warmer than we'd like, but you can't tell where her ends like stop and where her extensions start. So then we know that we can continue to work through the midsections, and but for the meantime her ends blend, so ultimately her extensions are going to look like they're natural and not like we very distinctly have extensions. So once I finished cutting her, we did curl her with my 1-inch Babyliss curling iron, and this is how it all turned out. So it honestly is so stunning. I love the combo of the half 22s and half 20s. This is how it looks from the back, just so stunning and seamless. You really can't tell where her hair stops and where her extensions start, and that's what you want with extensions. So if you guys have any questions, please leave them down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I can't wait to see you guys in my next video.